Dr. Stephen Everett, and along with my wife, Michelle Everett, welcome to day 15 of our study, Christ, the Living Expression, as recorded in the Gospel of St. Luke. I trust that you have followed us as we have made our way through each of the 14 chapters thus far, just telling the story of how God sent his only begotten Son, life itself manifested in every way to earth in order that we could experience and receive that life. So let's get into chapter 15 now, and let's look at how Jesus once again continues to present the living expression of life. Chapter 15. Many dishonest tax collectors and other notorious sinners often gathered around to listen to Jesus as he taught the people. This raised concerns with the Jewish religious leaders and experts of the law. Indignant, they grumbled and complained, saying, "Look at how this man associates with all these notorious sinners and welcomes them all to come to him." Now, it's important that you catch this right from the beginning, because otherwise, the parables that he's going to tell, you would isolate them individually and not see them in connection with this first portion of the story. Now, you have to remember that those that are being considered notorious sinners, they were Jews. Those who considered themselves religious leaders and experts in the law, they were Jews. So you have two different groups being described here. One is what we would call in modern day that crowd over there. That's how they looked at the tax collectors and, any publicans, anyone that wasn't among their particular group. And so from there, Jesus actually tells a series of connected stories in order to help the people who are grumbling, the people who are complaining, the people who are in just as difficult and bad of a condition as the people they're pointing their finger at and saying, that's the sinners. What they're implying is, we are not. But Jesus tells these stories, and I promise you, they didn't miss them, and we won't miss them either. So in his first story, here's his illustration. There was once a shepherd with 100 lambs, but one of his lambs wandered away and was lost. So the shepherd left the 99 lambs out in the open field and searched in the wilderness for the one lost lamb, because the propensity of sheep is to be heedless. In other words, they will wander. They have no idea what they're getting themselves into until they're lost or in serious trouble. And so Jesus further said, he didn't stop the shepherd until he found him. Now remember, Jesus is later referred to as the good shepherd, and then on other occasions, the great shepherd and the chief shepherd. So you see him coming forth as a shepherd in three dimensions. With exuberant joy, he raised it up and placed it on his shoulders, carrying it back with cheerful delight. Returning home, he called all his friends and neighbors together and said, "Let's have a party. Come and celebrate with me the return of my lost lamb. It wandered away." Keep that in mind. Wandered away. "But I found it and brought it home." Jesus continued in the same way. There will be glorious celebration in heaven over the rescue of one lost sinner who repents, comes back home, and returns to the fold, more so than all the righteous people who never strayed away. Do you think they're getting it yet? Do you really think they're getting it yet? That he's telling those who were indignant and grumbled about him being with what they call sinners, hey, heaven rejoices when a sinner hears and when a sinner returns home. Well, he ups the story a little bit. And this time, he uses a coin to convey the same message. There was once a woman who had 10 valuable silver coins. Now, notice here, the value goes up each time as he tells the story. And she loses one of those. And so it's not outside this time, it's in the house. So you've got that's lost outside the house and that's lost inside the house. Does it sound like these two groups? The notorious sinners outside the house, the religious experts inside the house. Now he's talking specifically to them. But he says what happens is that she will sweep diligently every corner of her house for that one lost coin. When she finally found it, she gathered all her friends and neighbors for a celebration, telling them, "Come and celebrate with me. I had lost my precious silver coin, but now I found it." That's the way God responds every time one lost sinner repents and returns to him. He says to all of his angels, "Let's have a joyous celebration. For that one who was lost, I have found." Now there's two stories here, same subject. He's talking about the lost. Who's he talking about? It's Israel. Jesus even said, "My ministry and mission is to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." He didn't distinguish whether they were tax collectors, publican is another name for tax collector, or even what we would consider some of the most degenerate activity among humankind. He didn't distinguish. He didn't say, "I come to the scrupulous lost or the unscrupulous lost." He came to the lost. And so that tells me that there were lost in every category of society. And those who were lost, he came to find them. So, lost in the field, lost in the house. The third story deals with a father, and he has two sons. Isn't it interesting? It's all about the two different classifications of society. And he said, one son, the younger one, came to his father. And it's always amazing the ambition of oftentimes the youngest one in the family. They will they will try things. They have a boldness to do things that sometimes the middle child or the older children just don't have the courage to carry it out. Well, the younger ones often will. And what he asked his father here was for his share of the estate. Now, generally, you don't do something like this unless you're saying to your father, "I wish you were dead, so go ahead and give me my inheritance." Now, the father not only gave him inheritance, but he gave it to the older son as well. And shortly after, the younger son packed up, took all of his belongings, and he traveled off to see the world. He journeyed to a far-off land where he soon wasted. And this is the portion of the story where it's often referred to as a prodigal or a waster. He wasted all he was given in a binge of extravagant and reckless living. With everything spent and nothing left, he grew hungry, for there was a severe famine in that land. So he begged a farmer in that country to hire him, and the farmer hired him and sent him out to feed the pigs. The son was so famished, he was willing to even eat the slop given to the pigs, because no one would feed him a thing. Humiliated, the son realized what he was doing, and he thought, "There are many workers at my father's house who have all the food they want with plenty to spare. They lack nothing. Why am I here dying of hunger, feeding these pigs and eating their slop?" You see, you must realize that to even associate with a pig for a Jewish person was one of the most grotesque things that you could do. And here he is, not only associating with them, but eating what they eat. This shows you the severity of his condition, all because he left his father. Not his father sent him out. He left his father. So he prepared to return, and he got his speech together. And he was going to tell the father about how he was wrong, how he sinned against him, and I'm not even worthy to be your son. Please treat me like one of your employees. What he did not realize was that, as far as the father was concerned, he never stopped being his son. But you see, as I look at these stories unfold, I see something amazing here. In the first story, it said that the shepherd, and I know that Jesus, the Son of God, was the one that was always referred to in the New Covenant as the shepherd. But when you deal with that lost coin, I believe that you see the operation of the Holy Spirit there. And now, dealing with these two sons is the Father. Do you see the Trinity in this story? God in fullness, seeking mankind to return back to him. And in each of these stories, the value grows as the story is told, because a coin is not as valuable as a human. And in this case, a silver coin, it had more value than just one lamb. And so God will do, and he did what was necessary to recover the lost. And when this son says, I'm going to go back, all I want to do is be a servant, he still didn't get it. It's like so many today. They still don't get it. What God is retrieving is a son. And when you look at the change that happened in his heart, the purpose wasn't change for the sake of becoming a servant, because a servant doesn't abide in the house forever, but a son does. And when the father would not even answer him when he was coming, with his speech, in his return, he's humiliated, he's broken. The father didn't rub it in. What he did do, though, was he gave him a robe, he gave him a ring, and he gave him shoes that he had already prepared for his return. You see, what the sons did not get is that their behavior was like orphans. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because orphans can have a demanding spirit because they think they're going to lack something, and therefore they must get and get it now. The other side of that is an orphan carries an attitude of, I need to prove that I'm worthy of what I'm getting. And in both cases, there is a lack of understanding of true grace. Because what grace does, grace will give you at times when you're demanding and irresponsible. And grace will give you at times when you think you worked and deserved it all. And yet the Father will take opportunity to teach you that grace is a gift from the Father. Because when the older son came in and said, what's going on? What is all of this partying? What's all of this joy? Well, he didn't realize his brother had returned, and he should be rejoicing. And the picture that this conveys is that the group in those first two verses, like the tax collectors, they were receiving. And the experts of law, they could not understand why Jesus would hang out with people like that. And if I can say it, party with people like that. That was because they were behaving like the older son, whereas the first group was like the younger son. And what they didn't realize, both groups were lost. And Jesus came as God manifest in flesh to recover and to find that which was lost. He came to give life to those who were dead. And that's what these stories convey to us. Well, did the older son ever rejoice because of the recovery? That part of the story is left for us to figure out. But what I do know is that when you look at this from the perspective of the full life of Jesus all the way through, the religious leaders never rejoiced because of his work of recovery, healing, finding, restoring, reforming, reviving. They couldn't rejoice. But we will rejoice because Christ, the living expression, our wonderful Christmas present from the Father, has recovered us. I'm so thankful for that. Well, join us tomorrow as we go through number 16. Good night.